In this video, we will be talking about the life in cell. We're taking all those complicated words and turning them into everyday language so it's easier to understand. Ever wonder how everything around us is actually alive? That's what biology is all about, the study of life and living things. The word itself comes from Greek. Bios means life, and logos means study. To make it easy to look at, scientists divide it into three major buckets: microbiology for tiny microorganisms, botany for plants, and zoology for animals. But no matter what kind of living thing we look at, they all share one big secret: cells. Cells are the basic unit of life. Think of them like the ultimate microscopic survival packs. To stay alive, these tiny blocks need nutrients and remove waste constantly. But how did we even find out about them? It took a few brilliant minds and some cool inventions. First, a father son duo named Zacharias Janssen and Hans Janssen, his father, built one of the first compound microscopes. Here's their photo and the microscope they invented. What they did is they basically used lenses in a tube to magnify small objects, which was a simple form of magnification, but it changed everything. Then came Robert Hooke, using an improved microscope, but not the earlier Janssen design. He examined a thin slice of pork. What he saw were tiny empty spaces he called cellulae, meaning small rooms. Because they looked like little rooms, he introduced the term cell. Shortly after, Anthony van Leeuwenhoek took things further. He was the first to observe living cells. He looked at pond water and saw tiny microorganisms moving around, which he called animalcules, meaning little animals. For a long time, people argued about where life even comes from. Some believed in abiogenesis, the idea that life comes from non living things, like mice magically appearing from dirty hay. Eventually, science supported biogenesis, the idea that life comes from existing life. Once we knew that, the puzzle pieces started coming together thanks to three more scientists. Matthias Jakob Schleiden discovered plants are made of cells. Theodor Schwann looked closely at animals and found cells in animal muscle and nerve tissues. Rudolf Virchow finalized the theory, stating that all cells come from pre-existing cells. Now, remember how we said cells are the basic unit of life? They generally come in two completely different layouts. Prokaryotic cells. Think of prokaryotic cells like a basic one-room studio apartment. There are no nucleus and only simple structures inside. Everything just floats around in that single room. Excellent examples of these are bacteria and archaea. Bacteria are the standard germs you already know, like the ones that cause strep throat. Archaea look similar, but they are just extreme survivalist germs that live in places like volcanic hot springs. And they are completely harmless to humans. They don't cause any disease at all. On the flip side, eukaryotic cells are like a massive multi-room house. This cell has a nucleus and complex structure, meaning it has specific rooms partitioned off for different jobs. You find this in plants, animals, fungi, and protists. To understand this better, fungi are things like mushrooms and molds, which can cause annoying skin issues like athlete's foot or ringworm. Protists are basically microscopic water creatures, like an amoeba. If you accidentally drink dirty water with them in it, they can cause serious stomach disease like amoebiasis. Living things also stack these blocks differently. Unicellular organisms are made of one cell. That's why it's called unicellular, uni. The entire creature is just one independent speck, like bacteria and amoeba. On the other hand, multicellular organisms are made of many cells working as a massive team, just like humans and plants. Next, Let's focus on plants for a second because they aren't all built the same way. Some are vascular plants, which have transport tubes inside them called xylem and phloem. Think of these like plumbing pipes running through trees, grasses, and ferns to move water, nutrients from the roots all the way up to the leaves. To break down simply, a great way to remember it is that xylem goes up. Then you have the phloem, which moves the food and sugar made by the leaves to the rest of the plant, carrying it both up and down to feed the entire thing. Now, most people usually think of vascular plants as tall and non vascular plants as short. But if you're wondering why grasses are classified as vascular even though they look short, it's because height isn't actually the main basis. While it's true that having these plumbing tubes allows most vascular plants to grow tall, any plant with xylem and phloem belongs to this group, no matter its size. Non-vascular plants. Other plants are non-vascular plants, meaning they have no transport tubes at all. Because they don't have plumbing, things like moss and liverworts stay low to the ground, or in other words, they are short. Though nature does have a crazy exception called Dawsonia superba, a giant moss that somehow grows up to 2 feet tall, making it the ultimate skyscraper of the non-vascular world. If a cell is like a busy factory, every part inside has a specific job to do. So here are the blueprints of what they have and don't have. Feel free to pause the video so you can take a look. Because next, I'll explain what those parts are. First up is like the security, the cell wall. The cell wall is a rigid outer layer around the membrane that supports and protects the cell. It's only found in plants, fungi, and prokaryotes. And it's made of cellulose and other polysaccharides to keep it tough. Polysaccharides are simply long chains of sugar molecules bonded together that cells use for energy or strong structure. One major structural polysaccharide is cellulose, sugar, which is the primary building material that makes up the cell wall. You will only find the cellulose of the cell wall in plants and some algae, and the reason is because they need to be upright and sturdy. Animals and humans completely lack a cell wall and don't have cellulose as they need to be flexible, move around, and bend easily. Right inside that is the cell membrane, which is the protective outer barrier of the cell. It is a semi-permeable membrane, meaning it acts like a picky bouncer that allows molecules to enter and leave while keeping bad stuff out. It's incredibly thin, only 7.5 to 10 nanometers, and is made of phospholipid bilayer. This layer has hydrophilic heads that love water on the outside and hydrophobic tails hide from water on the inside. In plants, the cell wall is the outer layer sitting right on top of the membrane. Moving on to the main floor of the factory is the cytoplasm, a gel-like fluid inside the cell that is mostly made of water, salts, and proteins. It contains cytosol and organelles, and it's the bustling site of glycolysis and other cell processes where reactions takes place. Deep inside the factory, we find the boss's office, the nucleus. It's a double membrane organelle with pores that stores DNA and acts as the control center of the cell. It directs everything, helping in protein synthesis, growth, and cell division. Right inside the boss's office is a smaller room called nucleolus. Its job is to produce ribosomal RNA. This rRNA builds ribosome subunits and sends subunits to the cytoplasm, which is absolutely essential for protein synthesis and cell growth. Once those pieces leave the office, they form a ribosome. These are responsible for protein synthesis, basically the factory workers building the products. You can find it in cytoplasm or attached to rough ER or rough endoplasmic reticulum. and they are made of rRNA and proteins that were originally formed in the nucleus. Next is the endoplasmic reticulum, a highway system made of flattened sacs called cisternae that helps in protein folding and transport. It comes in two types: the smooth ER, which handles lipid synthesis, making it fast, and the rough ER, which handles protein synthesis because it, it's covered in those tiny ribosomes workers. Next, every factory needs a shipping department, and that's the Golgi apparatus. This organelle modifies proteins and lipids and packages materials into vesicles to safely transport proteins and lipids wherever they need to go. And how was all this powered? By the mitochondrion, or mitochondria, when there's more than one. This is the famous powerhouse of the cell. It's a double membrane organelle with a rod shaped structure and is the site of cellular respiration. It produces ATP, or adenosine triphosphate, which is the energy the cell uses to stay alive. ATP, or adenosine triphosphate, you will always hear this name because without ATP, a cell has zero energy. If it stops, the cell runs out of gas and dies. When mitochondria fail to make enough ATP, it causes mitochondrial diseases that drains the body, leading to severe fatigue, muscle weakness, and organ issues because the cell literally have no power. Next, when the factory or cell gets messy, the lysosome cleans it up. This cleanup crew contains hydrolytic enzymes that act like strong acid to digest food and old cell parts, and even destroys microorganisms that try to attack. It removes waste through exocytosis, flushing things out. Sometimes it engulfs large solid particles in a process called phagocytosis, cell eating, or brings in fluids through phagocytosis, cell drinking. Plant cells have a unique kitchen called the chloroplast. This double membrane organelle contains chlorophyll, the green pigment that makes plants green. It's the site of photosynthesis, where the plant makes glucose, sugar, out of sunlight. Inside, it has a fluid called stroma and stacks of tiny solar panels called thylakoids and grana. You'll find these only in plant cells. Finally, we have the storage warehouse, the vacuole. This space stores water, sugar, salts, enzymes, and waste. Smaller in animal cells and larger in plant cells. Central vacuole fills most of plant cells, and it's surrounded by a membrane called tonoplast. This warehouse provides support, structure, and storage by pushing against the cell wall. When a plant runs out of water, the warehouse empties, and that loss of water causes wilting and drooping of the plant. To wrap things up, let's talk about how some cells actually move around using specialized propellers. First, there's flagellum, which is a whip-like structure for movement. It features an axoneme, or covered by a membrane, anchored by a basal body, which acts like a tiny motor. You find this in bacteria, archaea, eukaryotes, and protists like the euglena. Now, on your screen, you'll see six different arrangements. Monotrichous, a single flagellum at one end, like a boat with one propeller. Lophotrichous, a cluster of many flagella grouped at one end. Amphitrichous, flagella is taken straight out of both ends. Perithrichous, flagella is sprouted all over the cell, making it look completely hairy. As for the other options you see on the screen, those are the other setups. One is atrichous, which means the cell has zero flagella and just drifts around. The other is amphilophotrichous, which people also call cephalotrichous, but they mean the exact same thing. It's just like amphitrichous, but with a whole cluster of flagella at both ends instead of just one. Speaking of hair, the final way cells move is using cilia. These are hair like structures for movement that are shorter than flagella. Instead of a long whip, they look like hundreds of tiny oars working together. They are found in locomotion, feeding, and circulation, using a fast rotational movement to paddle through fluid seamlessly. And that's how a cell works, from the tiny bouncers out the door to the power plants inside. Everything is well organized like a small microscopic city. And that's the end of the lesson. I hope this helps you learn. Please like, subscribe, and drop a comment below. Don't forget to hit that notification bell and wait for the next week's upload.